Greetings, Marsh here, and welcome to episode 360 of my modded Factorio playthrough. In this episode, we are going to get finished up with the power armor, and then get started on rocket parts. Enjoy! So we have completed most of the personal and vehicle equipment, and because research takes so long these days, with the high resource requirement, due to Science Cost Tweaker, we're going to have to do some essentially constant research. But if we wait until we get all of this stuff that we'd want, it's going to take many hours. So we should try to focus on the next relevant thing here. And honestly, at this point, it's probably the rocket, because we are going to have to launch a lot of them. Now, I did go through the SpaceX settings and drop them down to a tenth of their original numbers. So they're not quite as crazy, but still, you can see this stuff is way bigger in research than anything else that would come before it, so I don't terribly mind the fact that I dropped it down. Now, the reason why I dropped it down to a tenth is because what Science Cost Tweaker does is makes all of the end game research 10 times higher. And this is already supposed to be difficult, so I think they were interacting poorly in that sense. So instead of 2 million red science packs for the first faster than light research, now it's only, air quotes only, 200,000. Now the very last one is still 2 million of everything times 2. So even though we've only done a little more than 1 million red science packs up until this point, we're gonna have to do 4 times as much for this last research. So I don't terribly mind that I've set it down, because it's still a much larger number than anything the factory's done up until this point. The big one, though, is that it requires space science packs here, and you get 1,000 of them per rocket launch. So if we need 2 million science, then that means we need about 2,000 rockets just for the science packs, not including all of the spaceship parts that we would have to launch up. So the sooner we get started on this, the better, because while we're building rockets, we can be finishing up on any other research we need to do. Because once we hit this, we'll have researched everything else we want to, because it's going to take a long time. So, to get started, let's just look at what we need to get to space science here. Of course, we need to build a rocket. And the 3 main components that we still don't have are the heat shields, the computers, and the rocket fuel. The heat shields we've been saving, but no longer. It's pretty easy to do, in the sense that it's just silicon nitride and tungsten carbide plate, and a lot of both. And it's made in a sintering oven, so it's kind of a an ore bus item, but I don't think we actually need to make it there, because then we would just have to put it on a train when silicon nitride and tungsten carbide are both already on trains to begin with. So we'll probably find somewhere better to do this. We've got the rocket control unit we need to build, and it's essentially just a circuit bus computer item. It's one more thing we need to put on there, but it's made with just the same stuff that any other blue circuits are made out of. So we probably could latch this on either to the blue circuit setup or maybe to tier 8 modules. We'll have to see how big the numbers are. It's probably not that bad, because you see it has a 30-second crafting time, so it doesn't consume resources very quickly. And we need our rocket fuel, which requires some more chemical research here. That first, we need Advanced Chemistry 5, which is nice. It gives us the green version of all of the oil refining machines. And also it gives us the final metal catalyst with nickel and tungsten. And it gives us some high-level chemical processes we can use if we need to. And gives us lots of other stuff like resin, boilers, plastic. But for now, I want to just focus on things related to the rockets, just because I'm worried about research time. So I would rather get researched what we need right now, and then when there's extra time, we can start researching optional things. And then we need nitrogen processing 4, which gives us that higher than green tier, so orange tier of the advanced gas refinery. And it gives us some nitrogen processing paths. So with all of that, we can make rocket fuel, which is made from the oxidizer capsules and the fuel capsules. The oxidizer is nitric acid mixed in with dinitrogen tetroxide, and the fuel is dimethyl hydrogen gas mixed in with hydrogen gas, and that is how we make the rocket fuel. And it is something that has a fuel value, a lot of it at that, 100 megajoules, and we could potentially put it into trains if we really wanted to. Finally, all of that together allows us to build the rocket silo. And it's a little late in the playthrough to be installing a new mod, but I decided to anyway, that I installed the rocket silo construction mod, which basically makes building the rocket silos, instead of just an item, that it is a 6-step process that involves you dumping a ton of resources into the silo and spending time and creating pollution to build it. So that seemed cool. So this is the first stage of the construction site. Then it goes from there. But the rocket part is made out of rocket fuel, rocket control units, low density structure, heat shielding tile, and rocket engines. And those engines are just a tungsten item. And see, this is 10,000 research times 2 for everything. So it is quite expensive to do. And we're not quite done yet, because that only lets us build the rocket. We won't be able to do anything useful with it unless we could do science packs. And there isn't too much that goes into this. It's just to build the satellite, which, compared to the cost of the rocket, it's actually not bad, but it does require a lot of our stuff. So it requires glass, which is easy, rocket fuel, and then our silver zinc batteries, which are now required, rocket control units, low density structure, and then the RTGs and radar 5s, neither of which we're making right now. So let's hit the RTG to finish out the list. Cobalt oxide and sodium carbonate get mixed to make sodium cobaltate, and we throw that in with some other stuff and plutonium to make the RTG. And we will have to let that research go. At some point, we're probably going to need to essentially rebuild the science bus to just crank out the maximum amount of science we can get out of this. Right now, all of our labs consume about 4 science a second, and that's about what the setup can do, so it's really not that bad. But later on, we're going to just need to go nuts. But also, there's no point in doing that until we have top tier everything, and we don't quite have that yet. We don't have the highest level of assembling machines. Of course, we could just research it real quick, but I would rather start focusing on things like building rockets, and we'll worry about this when research gets obnoxiously slow. So between the episodes, I have been working on pollution. Of course, it's been relatively dormant, but I added even more of these tree farms here. Now, the factory has a total of 21 of them scattered all over the place, because they are exceptionally effective at clearing out pollution. And the reason I can do that without creating Tree-mageddon is that I modified the pollution producing modules. So now each one is 400% extra pollution. What this does is makes it so a pollution producing module will create more pollution than a speed module. Essentially, I just put it back to where it was. I think it was at 50% per tier, and I dropped it to 30%. Well, if you put it back to 50%, then it maintains its crown. So I put those modules into every one of these tree setups, and now, as a result, they don't require or create nearly as many resources. So we could put more of them in the factory. So that's what I did, just to eat up pollution. It does mean that our tree processing setup is a little bigger than it needs to be now, but hey, it's still working. The drones are picking up trees, bringing them back and chopping them up every once in a while. But I also took this opportunity to completely remove the old tree setup. In retrospect, I probably should have done it on camera, because that was the oldest part of our factory, so maybe I should have done it on camera. But it's gone now. Now the oldest part of the factory, it's probably the algae farm, but it's been upgraded so many times that I don't think it really counts to say this is how it used to be, because I think at the time it was only a single line of machines, and they certainly weren't upgraded. But the oldest part of the factory that hasn't been upgraded is probably this paper line right here, and you can tell that it's yellow tier machines, and a lot of them. And the eagle-eyed among you are probably like, wait, where are the recipes? This build is broken. You are correct. The build is broken, but it's not my fault. Within the past few days or so, there's been a relatively major AsiaBob's update, and they changed a lot of recipes. I went through the factory fixing the stuff I could see based on the patch notes, but the one big thing that changed, and I'm saving it for here, is the paper and the uses of paper. Because it used to be where paper was a component of these tier 1 circuit boards, but it no longer is. You don't need paper for that anymore. Now, paper goes into the phenolic boards, or the tier 2 of circuits. So we're going to have to kind of switch things around to make that work. And for the most part, tier 3 and 4 are unchanged. Although now, with glass, it actually requires water and can use coolant. So I did add the water in, but unfortunately it means that we could do a cooling setup here, which it isn't set up for, like these places over here. So we're probably going to have to redo that at some point, but it was fixable, so I got it working. But it does mean we're going to have to come through here and completely change the way paper is being done. But I'm actually fine with that, because I believe a few episodes ago I was already kind of talking about upgrading to the better types of pulp, the better types of paper, since we already have better trees and better seeds. And we're also growing so many trees that we have to burn the extras. So we will get to that. That's something we need to do. And you see, the train station doesn't even have enough resources in it for a train anymore. So at some point, it's going to become a problem. But for now, I would like to fill in that hole just to make it so it's a little more square. And I think there is a robot hole in there, yeah, but they will fix it eventually. And there's some remnants of the old setup that are still here. But we don't need any of that anymore. Of course, they're continuing to break the robot zone here. But let's get rid of the road, because we certainly don't need it. I guess I'll just leave it right there, terminating next to where these will be. I did the road replacement in that way because drone roads are weird. Like, you can't just go over the road with concrete. I guess they did that just to make it so you didn't accidentally break the roads. So to actually remove a road, you need to physically pick it up and then place the concrete back down. So it's a little awkward. Okay, let's get a few more accumulators in here. We don't really need them, but it will look straighter. Guess we gotta fill this in too. Well, the last little bits of personal research that we were doing for our power armor was better jetpacks and the personal teleporter. So to get started, let's work on the jetpack here. We've got tons of space left over, but first we have 4 of the red jetpacks, which let us move all right. But let's upgrade all of these. It's going to require some low density structure, so let's just ask for it. Also, we still needed our brick setup here, so I did just kind of put it in this little empty spot. Didn't really change anything about the technology because it works and the bricks just aren't that important. So it's worked up until this point, so we'll keep using it. Okay, almost got our jetpacks here. So now what's it like? Well, it's certainly faster. I mean, we could always use even more of them, but we're not really going to be flying around like this anymore. So I'm actually fine with leaving it like it is, because now our main method of transport is going to be the personal teleporter, and it requires all of these things that we don't normally carry because pollution tends to be pretty bad. At the intermediates bus here, and we've got some extra road area. How about we put yet another tree farm in here? Right there. Well, in a second, I suppose we'll be able to test it by teleporting over there. Say, let's move this stuff over there and put a teleporter right here. So it charges pretty quickly, but what's interesting to note is that the distance that you can teleport is limited by not the charge that's in your batteries here, but the charge that's actually in the teleporter. And because it holds 100 megajoules, it means that roughly 400 meters is the maximum distance that one teleporter can teleport you. So we're standing right here, which is at this corner. Let's see if we can go down here to where this construction's happening. Nope. We only have 61% of the energy that we need. So we can't go quite as far. We could go to, say, there. And there we are. Or like right there. Or like right there. It's pretty easy. I don't even think you need to zoom in on the map. I think you can just, yeah, click there. And every time we do that, it consumes some charge and then it quickly charges up. So it's pretty fast. But we're going to need to have quite a few of these on our character if we're going to want to be able to teleport. any meaningful distance. And I guess we could teleport twice. But one problem is, let's see if we can jump about the maximum distance. There we go. We jumped right there, but it uses all of the power, so we'd have to wait a second. So even though we could kind of leapfrog our way across the factory, we can't just go click, 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 and be there. We'd have to click, wait, click, wait. The way we get around that is just by having more teleporters. It will add the amount of energy that they have available in total to let you jump farther. And also, the more of them you have, the faster the energy will charge, which will let you jump faster if that's also something you want to do. But now we just have the slow process of asking for all these resources that we need to build these, because they're kind of expensive. But at least we have a second one now. So we let it charge, and each one of these can take up 10 megawatts. So even though we have all of these fusion reactors, if we do a lot of teleporting, they can actually consume quite a bit of power. But now we have enough to go all the way to the Arboretum here, and all the way back if we want to. And you see, hey, it's at 99%. So it does consume power. Looks like we are out of gold. So gold only ever went into making the wires right here and these components here. So we can switch to using gold coils and gold wire coils. So that is why everything is stopped. It would be really nice if we can teleport over there. So we've got 2 more teleporters ready to go. Let them charge up and see if we can make it. Okay. Can we get there? It would be down here. Looks like it. And that actually didn't use that much power. So can we jump over here? We can. What about over there? Not quite. But they're charging. Nice. But nope, not quite enough yet. So you can see how the more of them you have on your character, just the faster you can bounce around your factory, depending on how big it is. So it looks like we need even more of them. Well, that gold was a holdout because we switched over to coils. Let's just switch that to the sheet coils. Negative 512. So that will be delivered. And then we'll do another one right here for the wire coil. And there they go. This is definitely important to do because if we're going to crank up the output of our science bus here, we're going to need to make sure that we don't have any throughput limitations anywhere, and using coils will certainly help with that. And here's a use of that run speed toggle because we just want to pick up this side. So we need to figure out how many gold plates do we need. 13. Well, we're going to have to make them somewhere, and it's a little awkward, but the best place to do it is probably just on the bus here. It's a little weird having those in the middle of the bus, but it is what it is. We are making science again. It's just going to take a little while for it to work its way all the way down the bus. Actually, I kind of want to move this stuff around a bit. And put the reactors on the bottom just because it's kind of hard to see down there. And we'll know they're there so we won't have to scroll to see the last few rows. And then this does let us kind of line things up like this. And I was thinking we need all these reactors specifically for all these teleporters. Although what if we put these over there and put the batteries on that side? Nice, nice. Research is going. Okay, our teleporters are charged. Batteries are slowly filling up. Now how far can we go? To the corner? Yep. And that definitely made the charge go down a bit, but we're also charging up our insanely big energy shields. So we should probably let those fill up first to get a true test of this, but... Alright, can we go from the very northeast tip of the factory down here to the southwest? What? 99%? I suppose that's good enough. Wow, that's so close. Okay, well, I'm pretty sure that's enough. And we'd have to wait about 5 seconds or so after jumping to let that charge up before we can go again. But we could. So let's give that another test here. Let's jump over here. So we're up there. So now let's jump down here and see how long it takes to have enough power. So there we go. It does take a little while, and you see it actually used all of those accumulators. So if we're doing a lot of repeated jumping from the corners of the factory, we actually use more power than all of these fusion reactors. So having these batteries will definitely help. You can see now it's filling up at the rate of the fusion reactors and not the batteries, which it's much slower. Now they're filled up, and all the robots are getting filled up, and now the batteries. So we might need all of these in the end. Let's bounce back up to the bus here. Boom. That's so much easier. And the jetpack is nice when we are relatively close and we don't really need to teleport, because it is a little bit of work to go to the map just because you want to do a teleport real fast. And we're making progress here. Now we're on the rocket silo, which is the really big research. But since we're here, let's hit radar 5s. Just a typical item with nitinol. And with all of that, now finally we can research space science, or at least the ability to get it. And it's a really big research again, where this is 20,000 packs. This one is 50,000 packs. So it's a lot that goes into this. But now that we have that, we've got everything at least in the list. And we're good to go there. And that's the end of this episode. On the next one, we are going to fix our factory's paper output. Thanks for watching. I'll see you later.